Hi, in this video I want to talk about commercial products I use in my own practice. It's a common question I get after I teach a seminar. So the products I'm going to mention are products that I formulated for Apex Energetics. So I do have a financial relationship with them, being on their scientific advisory board. Now, let's talk about some of the products that are really critical when we look at cardiovascular health. And in the course we talked about nutraceuticals, we talked about what has there been done as far as generalizability and research for the general population, and where do clinical trials and composite scores of meta-analysis of different clinical trials show are very effective. And it was basically B vitamins and fish oils, and then also look at dietary abundance of evidence. It's including fiber into the diet. So one of the most important products for me when it comes to supporting vascular health will be using methyl donors. And when you look at the methylation pathway is the conversion of homocysteine to cysteine and then to cysteine. And this involves transferring a methyl group. And methyl group is a 1-carbon group. And when you look at using supplements like methyl SP, where you have different types of folate and trimethylglycine and B12 and vitamin C, this is one of the things that should be taken on a regular basis by, I think, most people. I personally take it myself. The other product I think most people should take for numerous reasons, and I take this product myself also daily, is a product called Omega Co3. And Omega Co3 is really a very good source of fish oil. So you can look at the EPA content is 500 milligrams, DHA content is 375 milligrams, and there's also some GLA and taurine. And then if you look at these nutrients here, these are all the cofactors you need for the desaturase enzymes to convert omega-3s into anti-inflammatory prostaglandins. So it really is a complete metabolic pathway support to really convert fish oils into the anti-inflammatory end products that we need. And these capsules, when you look at it, 2 soft gels provided by 500 milligram. So I take usually about 6 capsules a day, and the studies really have shown that taking anywhere from 1 gram to even up to 6-7 grams seems to have a linear beneficial effect when they look at cardiovascular risk factors. And fish oils, in addition to being really good for vascular health, are also really important for brain health and brain function and synaptic activity, and also reducing risks for cognitive decline and dementia. And then the third supplement that really addresses some generalizable research that really shows that benefits cardiovascular health is just increasing fiber. Now, you can do it with your diet, or you can initially just take a couple capsules of this product called Fibermin to really increase your load. So this has guar gum, pectins, and flax seeds, and cellulose gum. And this is 1 capsule size. So 1 or 2 capsules, even with meals, can help control glycemic index responses, because fiber helps slow down the sugar absorption. But dietary fiber is really an obvious thing to take to reduce blood pressure, to optimize lipid markers and optimize lipid metabolism and lipoproteins, and support the microbiome, help develop short-chain fatty acids, all the things you really need to impact the web of physiology. So methyl SP, Omega Co3, Fibermin, they're all great ways to have general support for the main things that have been shown in the literature to prove have a preventive role in cardiovascular disease development. Now, we talked a lot about vascular endothelial destruction, and destruction of the vascular endothelium leads to these endothelial cells not being able to produce as much nitric oxide, and nitric oxide really helps support vascular health and blood flow and circulation. And there's a product, this is one of my favorite products of all time. This is called Nitric Balance. And Nitric Balance has a formula of adenosine 5-phosphate, xanthosyl nicotinate, acetylcarnitine, alpha-GPC, and vinpocetine, huperzine A. And the main ingredient is vinpocetine. And vinpocetine works with acetylcholine receptors to amplify its effects. And vinpocetine has been shown to activate endothelial nitric oxide synthase, dampen the inducible nitric oxide synthase pathway, which is inflammatory, and also activate neuronal nitric oxide pathways that help with synaptic activity. So those are all the mechanisms that vinpocetine has been shown to do in different studies. The combination of all these substrates help amplify the effects potentially on the ENOS pathway. But 1 or 2 tablespoons of this before working out or just in the morning can have a tremendous change in how you feel, and it's pretty immediate. So people can experiment with the dose to find out what dose works best for them, but usually starting with 1 or 2 tablespoons or teaspoons, you can be aggressive as you want with it. Everyone's going to have a different response. It's a good place to start, and then you can just kind of increase the dosage. And there's a point where you get a maximum benefit where if you take, let's say 3 tablespoons, you notice the maximum change in your vascular system and your endurance and your brain function and your exercise endurance. But if you take 4 tablespoons, it doesn't have any difference. And this will have an effect for maybe 2-3 hours. And then some people will take it again in the afternoon if they really notice that. It really also has an amplification effect if you take it right before you work out, because when you work out and you have that blood flow shearing response from your heart rate going up during exercise, that's what's going to turn on the endothelial nitric oxide synthase pathway. And if you have shearing activity in blood vessels from exercise, and at the same time you have substrates that activate those ENOS pathways, you can really get a greater response than just taking it without exercise. Now, for people that need longer support, Neuro2 is something that has vinpocetine in there, but this is in a capsule form versus in a liquid form. And Neuro2, the term neuro is used because it's one of the products we use to support mechanisms with botanicals that have been shown to increase circulation and blood flow to the brain, like ginkgo, butcher's broom, feverfew extract, vinpocetine, magnesium, riboflavin. These things all help with this nitric oxide pathway as well. The difference between these two is that this nitric balanced liquid form is going to have a much more aggressive and powerful response that is noticed immediately, but it only lasts for, let's say, 4 hours. It can vary from person to person. The Neuro2 is going to have a longer sustained effect. So for myself, I actually take both of these. I take nitric balance before I do any kind of exercise workout. I notice a huge difference in my exercise performance and my recovery. And then I actually take Neuro2 with each meal. And I notice the days I don't take it, I notice a big difference in my brain endurance and my circulation and blood flow. So both of these can be used. If you're just going to use one and looking for the best effect, nitric balance, the liquid version, works really well. If you're looking for something to travel with, something to take throughout the day to have longer sustained effects than just more than 4 hours, then Neuro2 can be used, and you can actually use both together. You can take a tablespoon of nitric balance in the morning or before workout, and then take a couple capsules of Neuro2 with each meal or snacks or whatever you feel like you need to increase your circulation and blood flow. Now, these things don't increase blood pressure. So activating the nitric oxide pathway and things like vinpocetine and huperzine A, ginkgo biloba, they don't increase blood pressure. They just activate that ENOS pathway that appears to have a modulating effect. Now, both of those are used for high blood pressure support. So for people that have high blood pressure, one of the first things I always go to is nitric balance and or Neuro2. And I also like to use electro-pH complex. And I like this electro-pH complex because it has a lot of potassium. And it has the potassium that I prefer, which is potassium bicarbonate, because the bicarbonate form of potassium helps also balance acidity and alkalinity, and it has this modulating effect on pH. So 1 scoop is like 535 milligrams. I like to have a patient take anywhere between 2 to 4 scoops and really get high amounts of electrolytes and compounds that have been shown to help with that renin-angiotensin system, things like magnesium, things like calcium, and things like potassium bicarbonate. So my go-to when I'm trying to look at using nutraceuticals to dampen blood pressure would be things like nitric balance before exercise, Neuro2 with meals, and then about anywhere between 2 to 4 scoops of electro pH. And I like to use this at nighttime before people sleep. I find that helps them sleep better with having that potassium and magnesium in there. And those are some very effective nutraceuticals I found that help with patients that have high blood pressure. Now, those that have low blood pressure also are a problem because, remember, patients that have low blood pressure, they can have leukoariosis, where they just have blood vessels that become unhealthy in their brain, and they end up with an expression of a different form of a vascular disease where it's very similar to little tiny mini strokes. And also, people that have low blood pressure lose the ability to increase that shearing stress in their blood vessels to activate endothelial nitric oxide synthase. They don't have good circulation. I mean, if you find someone with low blood pressure, you're going to see freezing hands, freezing toes, really bad circulation, white nail beds. It's really important to get their blood pressure up. So I like to use a product called Adrenastem. And Adrenastem is a botanical liquid compound that has licorice glycyrrhiza in there, and that seems to help with that. And I also find that most of my patients that have patterns associated with low blood pressure usually have low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. So I usually like to have them take the Adrenastem cream in addition to Pro-Glyco-SP, 1 or 2 capsules with each meal to help stabilize their blood sugar, and then have them stabilize their blood sugar with their diet. So have them frequently eat throughout the day, and then I also like them to have some salt and take some sea salt throughout the day to get their blood pressure back up. Now, the Adrenastem cream has licorice in there, and licorice has been shown to help with sodium retention. So it impacts an enzyme called 11-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, which is involved with aldosterone and sodium retention. So the combination of Adrenastem, Pro-Glyco-SP, and some sea salt are some nutraceuticals you may want to consider if you're trying to increase someone's blood pressure. And then the other key thing to talk about when we look at cardiovascular use is homocysteine support. That takes us back to methyl SP, and methyl SP actually has the tetrahydrofolate, even though this is calcium folate. This has the tetrahydrofolate. It also has trimethylglycine and MSM and betaine. These are all really critical to lower homocysteine. It's not just B12 and folate. So trimethylglycine and taking things like beet extract and choline are also very critical in that homocysteine reduction pathway, as well as some of these other cofactors. Now, when it comes to looking at cholesterol issues, and there is a need to lower cholesterol, for example, if someone has high blood pressure, there's vascular endothelium injury, they have high amounts of particles, they have increased risk, or you have a patient very concerned about the cholesterol, they're looking at what they can do from a diet, nutrition, lifestyle approach. Some nutraceuticals that can help support lowering cholesterol, things like total cholesterol, LDL, and actually even using HDL, would be things like inositol-hexanisinate. Inositol-hexanisinate has been approved as a monotherapy for hyperlipidemia, and inositol-hexanide by the American Heart Association, by the way. Inositol-hexanisinate is just a non-flushing form of niacin. Garlic extract, lots of research we went over in the course with garlic extract having a significant impact on blood pressure. Panathine, and then Arowana extract, Canopsis extract, Guccal extract. These are all compounds that have been shown to help with lowering LDL and total cholesterol and improving HDL. The other key thing that we've talked about before is fiberman. Adding fiber is going to be a really good addition in strategies to lower cholesterol. And that's kind of a way to go before you get more aggressive. If you want to get more aggressive and need to get more aggressive with certain patterns, then you can go right into using red yeast rice extract. And this product also has CoQ10 in there, because as soon as they start taking red rice yeast extract, and they're taking like 200 milligrams of it, they need 100 milligrams should really cover those potential adverse effects on impacting CoQ10 pathways, because when you reduce HMQ reductase, not only do you impact lipid metabolism, but you also impact CoQ10 synthesis. So you definitely want to have some CoQ10 with it. So this is a 2-to-1 ratio of red yeast to CoQ10, and you'll have to experiment with the dosage. Different patients will need different dosages. Just like anything, you have to start with the dose, check lipid panels, and see if it's improving. If it's improving, great, you found the right dose. If you found that it's lowering it but it's not enough, you may need to increase the dose. Now, for some people, they also like to take additional CoQ10, and APEC has a phenomenal liquid CoQ10 product. Not only does it have CoQ10, but it has PQQ, and PQQ has been shown in some studies to impact mitochondrial biogenesis, to really help those cell energy pathways. And that could be really important for people who are recovering from a stroke or some kind of vascular injury to their tissues. You definitely want to give them PQQ and CoQ10 to really support their mitochondrial pathways for recovery. And then we talked about essential fatty acids. Essential fatty acids are critical for cardiovascular health. We talked about using omega-CoA3 as fish oils. Apex also has this in a liquid form. It just depends on what your preference is. I personally prefer the capsules, but there's also the liquid form as well. So fish oils are always important. When we talked about all different pathways in cardiovascular disease development, everything from platelet aggregation and stickiness to vascular endothelium injury to lipid metabolism and changes in lipoproteins of LDL and HDL to oxidation of LDL, all those pathways have shown to be dampened by EPA and DHA. So using either a capsule form or just a pure liquid form can be a really good idea. And then once you get into other mechanisms that are critical in nutraceutical support for cardiovascular or vascular health mechanisms, you really want to look at anti-inflammatory compounds. So in scenarios where there's elevated CRP, elevated ferritin, there could be greater needs for anti-inflammatory flavonoids. Resveratrol Active is a phenomenal resveratrol product, and the resveratrol product is emulsified and micronized. This really changes absorption. Some studies published on micronized and emulsification show anywhere between 4 to 8 times, so 400 to 800% more absorption. And turmeric is also critical for inflammatory responses, and this is also micronized and emulsified. And curcumin and turmeric are really, really hard to absorb as a powder. So you have to take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of milligrams of it for a little bit of effect. But a micronized emulsified way is really the way to go. And this product has 95% active curcuminoids, which is the highest level you can get. So I don't think there's an equivalent to the Tumero Active product. Now, the Tumero Active has larger sizes. They also have these in capsule forms. They have the Resvero product in a capsule form as Resvero SC, and then they have a turmeric product as a capsule form if you prefer. It's just called Tumero SC. So some people like the liquids. They feel the immediate effect when they take a liquid, and some people prefer the capsules because it's not as messy and it's easier to travel with. So those flavonoids are really important. The other key things that's important when you look at cardiovascular or vascular related mechanisms is things like glutathione. So glutathione is the most powerful antioxidant. It's the main antioxidant in the vascular endothelium. It's really important when people have oxidized LDL patterns or just when there's any general inflammation. So the combination of resveratrol, turmeric, and glutathione really seem to impact multiple pathways beyond just vascular health pathways. They impact neuron preservation pathways. They help support the microbiome. And getting into the microbiome, let's talk about TMAO. So TMAO is a gut metabolite, and if you remember, probiotics have no effect on TMAO, and TMAO has been shown to be impacted by flavonoids. So things like resveratrol and things like turmeric seem to be very helpful. Then we talked about the GI metabolites. Basically short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, propionate, acetate seem to have all the beneficial effects for cardiovascular protection from gut metabolites. And this product called Enterovite has butyrate, propionate, acetate, short-chain fatty acids in there. And it's probably one of the best products you can use for microbiome support pathways in these Enterovite compounds in there, butyrate, acetate, propionate, have been shown to be very, very impactful, not just providing fuel for the gut, but also to modulating things like tight junction regeneration, regulatory T cell support in the gut, and just general systemic inflammatory responses. Then we started to talk about downstream pathways. We talked about how important insulin resistance was. In my practice, when I'm dealing with insulin resistance patterns, there's a product that I like to use called glycoberine, which is a 500 milligram berberine capsule. And if I want to be a little bit more effective with their blood sugar nutraceutical support, I'll use this one called glycoberine MX, which has other AMPK modulators like burdock and alpha-lipoic acid and rosehips. We went over a lot of these compounds and the research published on them in the diabetes course. There's also a glycoberine soft gel. Some people like the soft gel version of it. And then for people that have insulin resistance, in addition to modulating AMPK, I'll have patients also take this product called glycin. And glycin has nutraceuticals that support the insulin signaling pathways. So things like alpha-lipoic acid, things like inositol, things like vanadium, different B vitamins are really critical cofactors and signaling agents for that insulin receptor site. So those can work really well. Now, sometimes I use a product called Glycogen Synergy, which is a packet. And this is just a really aggressive way to give a person the glycin nutraceutical pathway for insulin signaling, adaptogens, fiber source, fibermin, and then protoglycin, which are botanicals that have been shown to have some impacts on impacting insulin signaling pathways. So that can be very useful as a packet. But I really like to use this personally. I like to use glycoberine MX, and with some people just the packet or glycoberine MX with glycin. That's really what I'm really using more often in my practice these days. And then for people that have this constant need to stabilize their blood sugar and just need some support with like a protein powder, I'll use glycemivite. And glycemivite, it's a fiber source, and it uses pea proteins and it uses phytosterols. And plant sterols like phytosterols and pea protein and inulin and inositol and branched-chain amino acids all help stabilize blood sugar levels. So I'll have them just mix this with things like almond milk or even just water, and just have them drink this if they're needing some additional support throughout the day to keep their blood sugar levels stable. So those are the main products that I like to highlight that I use in my own practice when I'm trying to improve vascular health from many of the mechanisms that we talked about in the cardiovascular, neurovascular, Krasian Institute module. Thank you.